Where is our political leadership? It's a question that now needs to be asked. There has been no official briefing by any top minister or the Prime Minister over the last 72 hours. We heard today from top officers of the three armed forces where evidence of India's pushback of the Pakistani Air Force was displayed. Apart from this briefing, where questions meant for politicians were lobbed at the officers, there has been scant communication. On the other hand, you have a former chief minister and top BJP leader claiming the Balakot strikes will win the party votes. To speak more on how our political leadership is behaving at this time, I'm joined now by Vinod Sharma, Neerja Chaudhary and Amitabh Tiwari. But I will first begin by speaking with Lieutenant General H.S. Panag. Welcome to the show, Lieutenant General Panag, and thank you for speaking with us. I just want to first get your view on the briefing we saw a little while ago and understand in what circumstances is such a briefing required.
Well, since so far, earlier two briefings that were carried out on the 26th as well as on the 27th were done by the MEA spokesperson, though the Air Force Air Vice Marshal Kapoor was also present, but however he did not say anything during those briefings. Those briefings were more from the point of view of foreign policy, and they were addressing mostly international audience, and where they tried to say that we have targeted only terrorist targets and we have not targeted any military installation or any other civilian infrastructure in Pakistan. Now, since a lot of military action took place yesterday in the morning around 10 o'clock, beginning 10 o'clock, so there was a requirement of some clarity, more so since Pakistan's Director General Inter-Service Public Relations has been very active in his briefings on the YouTube, as well as a large number of videos that have been posted about the military incidents. So it was considered necessary by the government that the three services or their representatives should give some kind of a formal briefing to clarify the situation so that people do not get carried away by Pakistani propaganda.
You know, that's a fair point, and if that was the purpose, Lieutenant General Panag, are these three top officers the right people to answer the horde of questions that they faced? Clearly, they have had to sort of fill the gap of a briefing from the political leadership.
Not really. I think most of the questions were related to military operations, and for that, the most competent people are the defense services personnel, and not many political questions were asked. I think questions were straightforward, barring if you treat the question that was asked that do you consider the attack on military installations as an act of war, to which the answer was relatively simply given, that since India has targeted only terrorist targets, the terrorist infrastructure, but Pakistan, by contrast, has targeted military installations. It is just that the timely action of the Indian Air Force foiled the strike, and there was no damage caused. However, had the bombs found their target, substantial damage to Indian military installations could have been caused. So whether it was an act of war or not, see, we are at the stage where we are below the threshold of war, and these are opening skirmishes. So I don't think this question is very political. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the Indian Air Force has gone all the way to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and struck at a terrorist target. We have violated the airspace of Pakistan, be it terrorist targets or otherwise. And Pakistan considered it a hostile act, and they said so, and they said they will respond. And to respond, since there are no terrorist infrastructure that Pakistan can find and blame it on India, within India. So they had to select some target. But Pakistan, in their briefing, were also very careful when they said that we deliberately did not target the military installations and we threw our bombs close by to give a signal and a warning. So to that end, I think it was well within the purview of the military to answer this question.
Lieutenant General Panag, since I have you here, we have made it clear that, we will keep targeting terror camps if and when the need arises. Following all the occurrences today and, the offer to send back Wing Commander Abhinandan, do you see the situation de-escalating from here on?
Firstly, a major threshold has been crossed. The air forces of both countries have violated the airspace of each other. First time after 1971 in an act of belligerence. Otherwise, there have been inadvertent crossings, which were, of course, which happened due to oversight by the pilots. So both India and Pakistan have taken very considered step of crossing into each other's territory. So there has been a quantum jump in the degree of escalation. Up to now, it was restricted to, on Pakistan's part, by, of course, terrorist action, and also the actions that the operations that take place on the line of control. It was restricted to artillery fire and the other direct firing weapons. So when you use the Air Force, it's a quantum jump, and it also signals that you got your reach over the entire country. So to that extent, we had jumped, many notches in the degree of escalation. Beyond this, it will lead to more intensive air war, and it could lead to missile strikes. And then, of course, it could switch also to ground operations. So this is the situation, and the honors for the 2 days are virtually even. The first day, India has carried out a phenomenal strike, 100 kilometers deep, 80 kilometers deep from the line of control, and all the way to this place which will be hit, and which is in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So, and without being intercepted or detected by the PAF, which is a major achievement. Yeah. Now, next day, Pakistan took counter action. They first struck at our military installations in Krishna Ghati, Rajouri, and Naushera sectors, and the Indian Air Force scrambled. And in what happened after that is that in the engagement that ensued, the Indian MiG-21 Bison shot down F-16 aircraft, and which fell back into Pakistan territory. And in the meantime, another aircraft locked onto this MiG-21 Bison and shot it down. But since the pilot of the aircraft was captured and taken prisoner of war by Pakistan, so I would say that, and Pakistan denied the loss of the MiG, of the F-16. So the second day's honors, I would say, probably were with Pakistan. So both sides were virtually even, but also both sides have also mobilized their troops on the ground. I mean, I'm talking of their reserve formations. So both sides are poised for further escalation, which may take place.
Okay.
So at this juncture, first Imran Khan made the offer yesterday during his address to the nation of holding up the olive branch, but at the same time also saying that such wars can always spiral out of control. And since both sides are armed with, he didn't say nuclear weapons, but armed with the kind of weapons that they have, so neither I would be able to control it, nor Mr. Modi would be able to control it. So it was a veiled warning. And then yesterday, India gave a dossier on Pulwama.
Absolutely, we'll have to wait and see where this goes. I want to thank you for your time, Lieutenant General Panak, for coming in and explaining your point of view on the briefing we saw. Let me come back to the debate now. Vinod Sharma, Neerja Chaudhary, and Amitabh Tiwari are with us. Mr. Sharma, let me begin with the key question about how our political leaders have behaved in the last 3 days. And here, of course, it is the ruling BJP and the opposition parties who thought it was a fit time to start, political attacks in the middle of what we're seeing. But the fact is that there has been no official briefing from the Prime Minister or the Home Minister or the Defence Minister in the last 3 days. Do you think that lacuna is harmful at a time when there is so much false information floating around?
Yes, of course, because, today the briefing sought to dispel the disinformation that was coming from the Pakistani side. And this briefing by officers of the 3 services was very productive and very creative. And I think that if there is regular briefing, you see the prospects of rumor mongering get diminished greatly, at least from the other side. You see, war is not just about war with weapons or war with words. It's also a Psy war. And in the Psy war, it is this disinformation which is used by your adversary. And I think that we were not adequately prepared to countenance this Psy war from the Pakistani side. And I think that better late than never. In fact, ever since the 26th, when our fighters went and bombed Balakot, there hasn't been any detail coming from official sources. Much of the information that has gotten published in newspapers is source-based information, and we don't have still any details of the kind of casualties and damage that we have inflicted, official version of what we have inflicted at Balakot. But yesterday there was this confirmation for the first time coming from the Foreign Secretary, from the Ministry of External Affairs, that we lost 1 MiG and the Pakistanis lost 1 F-16, and that our pilot was held captive by the Pakistani side. So this has been the story so far. But I think the biggest development today is the announcement, unilateral announcement. I think this kind of positive unilateralism is rarely seen between India and Pakistan. It had happened in 1999, and that was with some efforts by the Indian side that another airman, Nachiketa, was released. But this time, this is, whatever to say, positive unilateralism by Imran Khan.
Yeah.
And one hopes that this would lead to a degree of de-escalation, because escalation, conscious escalation at this point in time would not be that tenable.
I want to focus. I want to focus.
This is my assessment.
Sure. So I want to focus on the behavior of our political leadership, because over the last few days we have made it a point to talk to former ambassadors, defense analysts who track this and see what they want and what they think about what's happening, which is why I've called the experts to look at how this is panning out politically. Neerja Chaudhary, I know everyone keeps saying that we shouldn't talk about politics at this time, but the fact is that our leaders are, isn't it? They are trying to milk the situation, and it's not very becoming at this point.
The situation will get politicized because elections are around the corner, but the elections have not been notified, and this situation of tension and us attacking the terror camps in Balakot and them attacking coming across the LOC yesterday, this situation is still not, the dust has not settled. That we don't know. People are talking about de-escalation. Donald Trump indicated this today when he said that they'd been talking to India and Pakistan and they were hopeful that the tensions would be over soon. That was the first sign of, the de-escalation that came. Also yesterday, that there may be de-escalation. You remember that there was an order that the airspace northwards of Delhi would be given to the defense and there'd be no civilian aircrafts, and this order was withdrawn 3 hours later. That also was a possible indication that maybe things behind the scenes were beginning to de-escalate. But still the situation is a live one, and so in a situation like that, to try and get political mileage out of it in terms of, or electoral mileage out of it, or even pitch it at that level, the rhetoric and the discourse, I think that both the sides can wait. Certainly the government, the Prime Minister, the BJP, it doesn't matter if they wait for a week or 10 days. They can after that go to town. They will go to town and say that we did this and did this and sent a message to Pakistan, we handled it very well, and there'll be a place for that. But at the moment to try and do it when the situation is the way it is, I think they need to show more restraint. And I would have liked, normally what the Prime Minister does do in a situation like that of national security is to call the opposition and quietly take them into confidence. Maybe not before Balakot, but certainly after it, that this is these are the moves we are making with the other nations, with Pakistan. This is this is some total of the situation coming from officially from the Prime Minister. That would have been a desirable thing to do. That was not done, of course. This kind of thing cannot be done with 25 parties. That's another level of taking into confidence. But certainly I agree with my co-panelists that the representatives of the 3 services putting the record straight, things that are factually incorrect, coming from the propaganda machinery of Pakistan, as they said, taking the country into confidence. This is not what happened, this is what we think happened. I think that is a very desirable thing, because otherwise there is a lot of speculation, as somebody said, rumor mongering that goes on.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And the more the information, credible information, the better it is.
No, so the 3 top officers have come and they've done their duty, but there are political questions that the political leadership should answer. Amitabh Tiwari, that's the question I'm asking. The Prime Minister has spoken twice in the last 2 days, but both times at BJP events. Today he spoke at Vigyan Bhavan while giving out awards. No reference was made to what has happened so far. Shouldn't there have been an official briefing? The Home Minister was seen today at a manifesto committee of the BJP. There has been no official briefing. The Defence Minister has not spoken yet. Meanwhile, you have Imran Khan speaking again and again and again, a flurry of videos coming in from Pakistan. Isn't it important that these are combated and answered to with official comments?
See, first of all, politicians will do politics. That is what they do day in and day out. So I'm not surprised at the politicization of this issue, both from the BJP as well as from the Congress side. Now coming to the question of regular briefings. I think there have been 3 briefings in the last 3 days. I don't know how many briefings we want. First. Secondly, somebody talked about the Prime Minister calling an opposition meeting and discussing the pros and cons, or telling them what has happened and what has not happened. The opposition meeting also has taken place. Maybe the Prime Minister has not chaired it, but the opposition meeting has also taken place. See, we are very hypocrites in that sense. Total Dhamal and Gully Boy have crossed 100 crores. People are dancing, actresses and actresses are dancing in Bollywood, Ambani's wedding, but we want the Prime Minister not to hold a rally or not to hold a meeting which was earlier scheduled. See, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is coming and speaking 3 or 4 times does not mean that India's Prime Minister has to come out and speak. There were 3 regular briefings which were handled, and it showed the weakness of, actually Pakistan was at fault, and that is why it showed the weakness of Imran Khan, that he was coming again and again because the situation was so fluid. And as and when the situation was so fluid, it was not correct for the Prime Minister to say anything in public meetings or in the government meetings where he attended. Of course, in the BJP meetings, he did take credit for these airstrikes, but that was also because the opposition targeted Modi for his failure to handle the national security issues when the Pulwama attack was carried out.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting point. I want to see what Vinod Sharma has to say about it. Yes, Mr. Sharma.
We are, with respect to political Baba, my friend Tiwari, I mean, giving a partisan speech at Churu within hours of our Air Force striking Balakot. Is this the right approach to forging national unity and a unified response in the face of a challenge that we ourselves created? I mean, I'm sorry. I know Gully Boy is doing well. I'm also sitting here and chatting. Political Baba is also chatting. Nirja is also chatting. That doesn't make things normal, because things aren't normal. It's a fact that life goes on. But then there are certain responsibilities constitutional authorities, elected representatives have to carry out. And I think that when Parliament is not in session, at least parliamentary party leaders of various political parties should be called and briefed. And that is not possible. An emergent session of Parliament can be called. We are a parliamentary democracy. We are not an executive presidency. That somebody should behave like a president who has all the powers to decide and then maybe veto certain decisions of Parliament. It doesn't work that way in India. So if you have a system, respect the system. Yes, let me finish. I respect the government's right. Government has the information. Government has to take the final call. And also the government has to take the opprobrium, any opprobrium that arises out of it. But at the same time, we have to show the world that we are not moving in opposite directions, that everybody is standing unitedly behind the Prime Minister of this country. Our Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of all Indians. He is not just the Prime Minister of a political party. Now, for the first time, we are seeing the faces of our services chiefs, or services officers who are coming and briefing. Till now, the impression was that this war or this aggression is being led by a party called the BJP and a person called the Honorable Prime Minister. We had a Foreign Secretary briefing, we had a Foreign Office spokesman briefing, and we had photographs of pictures, moving pictures of Sushma Swaraj reading out from a written statement. But if there was an all-party meeting called, which was addressed by the Honorable Home Minister, it was expected that the Prime Minister himself was there and he did the briefing himself. If he had time to go and fulfill his prior engagements, political engagements in Churu and elsewhere, and even today, when the whole country is discussing about the pilot, and now hopefully he will be released tomorrow, that you are addressing your booth workers. You see, politics is not about winning elections. Politics is also about winning hearts.
Yeah.
And making India stand up as one in the face of a challenge. That is where I feel a bit let down. I'm sorry if I have disagreed with someone, but this is my take on it.
No, I mean, this is a debate, so we want to hear everyone's views. These are issues that all of us care about, and I want Nirja Chaudhary to come in. Amitabh makes the point that everyone else's life is going on. Let's not pretend that elections are not round the corner. The PM is also, perhaps a BJP leader. Is there an equivalence, though, between actors, actresses, people watching movies and the Prime Minister of the country?
Look, I would say that I think the Prime Minister has led from the front. After Pulwama, which was, I believe, a tipping point and created a lot of anger in the country that enough is enough. Then this strike took place, and the Foreign Office worked the telephones, the world capitals, and I think have done well on the diplomatic front, considering the strong stand that US has taken, even China going along with the UNSC resolution. And then of course Pakistan retaliated, and our pilot is there, but whatever the background diplomacy has taken place, The pilot will hopefully be released tomorrow. That also is a welcome thing, welcome gesture that has happened. And Imran Khan has made a gesture of wanting talks, whatever be the talks. I think as far as India is concerned, we would like Pakistan to walk the talk as far as dealing with terror is concerned. The mood in the country has changed. The mood in the country is a very different one from the one even a year ago or 2 years ago. Now, in this context, I would say the Prime Minister has led from the front, but as Vinod was saying, I absolutely agree. In a moment like this, his stature would have risen even more had he called, not addressed an all-party meeting if he couldn't be there, but certainly called 4 or 5 of the leading opposition leaders and really taken them into confidence about the moves that the government was making. And I think also had they put off 1 or 2 of their poll meetings or poll-related meetings to say a week later, heavens wouldn't have fallen. And those very things could have been said a week or 10 days later. So
Okay.
I think that has been the place where things could have been better.
Amitabh, your response, you've heard the responses to your comments, and just may I add, is it the same thing? Don't we expect more from the ruling party, from the leadership, from top ministers in the government? Because look at the deluge of information from the other end since yesterday. Most Indians have been left to find out what's happening based on sources flashed on channels with seriously questionable editorial standards. The only way to combat it is official information, isn't it?
See, I mean, the other panelists are themselves agreeing that Modi handled this situation very well.
Yeah.
For the first time after 1971, we have crossed the borders, gone and stricken the terrorist camps. We've come back. Then Pakistan tried to do their misadventure. 1 aircraft from both sides were damaged. Our pilot was fell in their territory inadvertently. He was released within 24 hours, or let's say 1.5 days. So this is significant achievement. See, he going in public meetings does not mean that the government functioning has stopped. Many things, back channel things have been happening, and he in fact chaired meetings for 3 hours yesterday as per news reports. One was in the afternoon and one was in the evening to take stock of the situation. Now the only issue which I guess here is that he has not come out and answered the questions of the journalists. I think that is
Amitabh, I get your point. Okay, I get your point that the Prime Minister need not come and tell people what's happening. But then should he be speaking? No, should he be speaking about the issue at all then from what is a political platform? Why make references in Churi? Why make references to saying that we will all win together, vote together, we are one country together at a BJP booth rally? Then make no reference at all.
See, references in Churu were made because on 21st of February, from the Congress handle, we had tweets saying that the number of attacks on our Jawans or the number of youth joining the militant groups have increased under Modi's rule. So was it an opportune time to do that? So of course if there is opposition countering him, and there has been a significant achievement which everybody is lauding across the platforms, and he took some credit for it, because see, any military action has 2 aspects. One is the establishment aspect, which gives the green signal for the attack, and one is the military aspect or the operational aspects. In 1999 and 2008, then also the armed forces proposed that we should cross the borders and teach Pakistan a lesson. But the then establishment did not do it. Now, at least this establishment has taken a decision, has shown the world that we are a power, and we have the political will to sort this issue forever. So some sort of, and it's not as if he spoke for hours on that aspect only. He spoke one or two lines.
That's not the point I'm making. I'm talking about the choice of platform. If you're saying I don't need to speak about it, I'll speak when things are clear, that's fine. But then to speak about it while addressing a BJP rally. Vinod Sharma, can you come in on this? Because there is a dichotomy there. The Prime Minister will always belong to a political party. We are in a parliamentary democracy. Close to elections, we may expect different behavior on different platforms, but it is one person at the end of the day.
It has been stated just now by Mr. Tewari that in 1998, no action was taken, there was no hot pursuit. I may remind him, I may refresh his memory about India's, glorious record, even as a country that was aggressed upon, that India has never bombed any city in Pakistan. Never, ever. In 71, we did not bomb any city in Pakistan. In 65, we did not bomb any city in Pakistan. And yet we won these wars. We never air bombed any of the cities. And must he also know that this time too, the first briefing was that it was a non-military preemptive strike. There is something called a moral high which India has always enjoyed vis-a-vis Pakistan. And that is where I say that moral high, one contributory factor to that moral high was the political consensus we had in our country in 65, in 71. And in 71, if you remember, that so much was the unity that Indira Gandhi was openly praised by Mr. Vajpayee, who became Prime Minister later. Now, I was waiting for an occasion in a situation of adversity where opposition leaders would come out and openly compliment the Prime Minister for the very strong decision that he took. Now, that climate and that ambience for that kind of expression of unity and complementarity was not created at all. When within minutes, within hours of the terror strike, you go to Rajasthan and you cock a snook at the government in Rajasthan for not having done certain things, and then addressing your booth workers today as if those booth workers were actually like bunkers that had to be put on high alert for another war that is due another 2 months down the line. I don't think this is the right way of bringing the country together in challenging times. I mean, I beg to disagree. And I don't want to hurt anyone, but I feel that as an Indian, I wanted to see our political class shaking the hands of the Prime Minister and complimenting him for a very brave and a very bold decision.
Neerja, I'll leave the last comment to you. We should be expecting more from our political class, isn't it? The opposition as well as the political leadership and, of course, those running the government will always have a higher standard of answerability.
Absolutely. I agree with you that we should expect and we should also ask for it and insist on accountability also to people of India in a parliamentary democracy. And I think, to begin with, the opposition did say that we are totally with the government on this. That was the position they took. And then when all these things started and they started to feel that there was an attempt to take advantage, electoral advantage out of this, even before the whole thing is over, that's when then they met and had this statement of 21 parties saying, please don't politicize and use the armed forces in such a way. And there's a counter by the BJP then that you are politicizing the situation. So as I was saying earlier, have patience. It's only, of course, this is going to be politicized. We are into a very high-stake election a few weeks down the line. And the people of India are going to judge what they want and who they like. But you can wait for 8-10 days.
Well, that's good advice, and we'll end on that note. Thank you so much, Amitabh Tewari, Vinod Sharma, and Neerja Chaudhary, of course, who ends by saying that have patience, wait for 8-10 days. Don't make this a political issue yet.